try that again. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the First Unitarian Society of Milwaukee. My name is Beth Monholland, and I am honored to serve as your worship associate today and to welcome you fully into this space. We welcome people of all sexualities, ages, races, ethnicities, histories, and bodies here. We welcome your mind, your heart, and your spirit here. We welcome all that you bring with you today and all that your heart longs to set down. We welcome all of you. We extend a special welcome to each guest among us. We invite guests to fill out a welcome card located in the pew rack in front of you and drop it in the offering plate later in the service. Guests may also pick up a welcome packet at the rear of the sanctuary, where you will also find hearing assist devices and Braille hymnals. A fragrance-free area is located on the front right side in the first few pews. If you are a visiting family, including children or youth, after the time for all ages, noted in your order of service, please join the children's recessional and head across the hall to the common room. There you will be greeted by someone who will orient you to religious education. Immediately following the service, everyone is invited for coffee and conversation in the common room. My name again is Beth, and you are welcome to talk with me at the guest table there. As a way to engage at First Church, I invite you to explore the announcements insert for the numerous opportunities available here. In particular, let me draw your attention to just a few this morning. Our forum speaker at 10:10 is Ava Hagenhofer of the Congregation Sinai Social Justice Committee, whose presentation titled Puerto Rico se levanta will explore how the history of colonialism and the statehood versus independent movements have directly affected Puerto Rico. Sign up for the Fall Journey to Membership class. Led by our ministers, staff, and lay leaders, this series explores Unitarian Universalist theology, history, and social justice frameworks, as well as your own spiritual journey. The class is required to become a member of this church, but folks who are at the just curious stage are also welcome. The fall class will be held Saturday, September 21st, and on the evening of Thursday, September 26th. Register at the member service table during coffee hour. Youth Climate Strike, Friday, September 20th. Youth are saying, "Our house is on fire, let's act like it." Support the Wisconsin Youth Climate Action Team fighting for their future by joining our Earth Justice Ministry for the 10 a.m. march from City Hall or the noon rally at Lake Park. Then, on Saturday, September 21st, join the Climate Strike Rally and March. Find our Earth Justice Ministry folks with the First Unitarian banner at the noon rally at the county courthouse or the 1 p.m. march to City Hall. Please find details on these and more events in your announcements insert. And finally, so that we may all stay fully present with each other this morning, please silence any electronic devices for the remainder of the service. Once again, I welcome you to First Church and invite you to join me in the unison reading of our mission, which is printed in your order of service. We gather to nurture the spirit, engage the mind, and inspire action. And now I'd like to invite Paul and Jackie Akert to come up and light the chalice.
Our opening words this morning are called Walk Slowly by Donna Folds. It takes only a moment to breathe, a moment to be still, and just like that, something in me settles, softens, makes space for imperfection. The harsh voice of judgment drops to a whisper, and I remember again that life is not a relay race, that we will all cross that finish line, and that waking up to life is what we were born for. As many times as I forget, catch myself charging forward without even knowing where I'm going, that many times I can make the choice again to stop, to breathe, and to be, walking slowly into the mystery. Will you please rise in either body or spirit and join us in our opening hymn, number 6, Just as Long as I Have Breath.
This is the Wonder Box. We call it the Wonder Box not only because it looks wonderful, but because when you look at this shiny, fabulous, decked out box, you have to wonder, what's inside of it? Now, wonder can be a noun and it can be a verb. As a noun, wonder is a feeling of expectation or surprise that is created by something beautiful or unexpected, like this box. Do you have that feeling growing inside of you right now? Yeah? That's wonder. Now, if you start thinking about it and you think, what is in this box? Could it be a book? Could it be a toy? Could it be an elephant? Then you have begun wondering. And when you are wondering what in the world could be in that box, then wonder is a verb. To wonder means to be curious, to want to know something. Now, wonder is one of our Unitarian Universalist sources. We know that our direct experience with wonder and mystery shapes what we think and what we believe. Are you still wondering what could be in this box? Now, in religious education, we often began our time together with the Wonder Box. And inside the Wonder Box in religious education, there is a clue about what we're going to be talking about that day. Now, if you were hoping that there were Legos in this box, and you peeked inside, no Legos, you might feel a little disappointed. But if you are open to all the possibilities that might be inside of this box, you may still be able to be delighted with what is inside, no matter what it is. Do you want to know what's inside the box? Yes. Thank you. Do you think you can be open to all the possibilities? Yes. All right, then I might open it for you. Can you be open to wonder itself? It's flowers. It's flowers for worship today. How If you would now please join us, rise in body and spirit. We're going to sing hymn number 1020, Wo Ya Ya. The children and the teachers and the assistants after the first verse will come down and exit out this door with me. The first verse is after the first set of Wo Ya Ya.
You may be seated. I'd like to invite you to join me now in a time of contemplation, which will be followed by silence, followed by the seated singing of Spirit of Life. So take a moment to just settle in, feel your body. May your sit bones and your feet ground you. May the very top of your head connect you to all that is. And may your breath moving in and out bring you into being here and now. Spirit of life and love, Holy One of our being and our becoming, that which is sacred within, among, and beyond us. May we let go of any expectations of perfection we might have today, knowing that to expect perfection of mere mortals breeds sorrow. And yet, may we still expect delight, creativity, and joy with openness, not knowing where and when they may come. May we learn to blend our desires for improvement and healing and reform with compassion for what is right now. As we strive, so may we also breathe, balancing doing with being, awake to what is, working for our hopes that yet may become, and grateful for it all. May it be so.
Early in my career as an academic advisor, a simple 3-minute phone call provided me with a powerful lesson in checking my expectations. It was about 13 or 14 years ago in late April, one of the busiest times of year in my office. We were short-staffed, and my days were so filled with student appointments that I struggled to carve out time for a lunch break, and yes, even a bathroom break. The days felt like an endless marathon of meetings. Towards the end of one such day, I listened to my voicemail, and one of my students had left me a simple request. Please call me back before the end of the day. I listened to that message with a bone-weary sigh bordering on dread. I remember saying out loud, I don't want to call her back. And while I was very tired, that is not a typical reaction for me, because even on marathon days like those, I always said I'd rather talk to students than do paperwork. But with this particular student, I fully expected the phone call to go as every interaction with her had gone for 2 years. A series of complaints, fuming about a classmate, railing about a group project, disputing something with a teacher, demanding that somebody, usually me, fix the latest problem. I sat staring at my phone, resenting that I would end my day with such negativity. But since I didn't want to start the next day on that note, I took a deep breath and called her back. Thank you for calling, she said. I've been working on my senior portfolio. I've been reviewing papers and projects. I've reread feedback from instructors and peers and reflected on how much I've learned. The senior portfolio was a graduation requirement for her major, and it took up a considerable amount of time in a student's final semester. I braced myself for the complaint I felt sure was coming about this project. She continued, I finished writing my self-assessment, and I'm amazed at how much I've grown. Looking back on the past 2 years, I know I've been difficult, but I realized through this process that I wanted this time around in college to be perfect, and I kind of freaked out when it wasn't. It's been worth it, but now that I'm at the end, I wish I would have taken more time to enjoy it. But, and I knew there was a but coming, she said, you've really helped. You've been a great advisor, and I wanted to just say thank you for your guidance and your patience. I was literally stunned. That was not the but that I had expected. I stammered some kind of acknowledgement and told her I'd see her at graduation, hung up the phone, and cried. I cried because I was ashamed at how much I had dreaded calling her back, ashamed to realize that I had essentially given up hope for her, and ashamed to realize that I had forgotten that I do believe people can grow. And I cried at how moved I was that she took the time to acknowledge her own fears and to thank me for patience I hadn't always felt. I think about that phone call all the time. I think about how she almost missed getting to that point because she kept expecting perfection, and about how I almost missed that moment because I was expecting the worst. That phone call taught me, is still teaching me, to check my assumptions and to steer clear from the extremes of low expectations and perfectionism, both of which nearly robbed me of a powerful connection. When I'm tired and stressed and tempted to give up on some situation or person or myself that isn't going how I want, I remember those 3 minutes in time, and it reminds me that it's the little moments that matter, and it's the little moments that I don't want to miss.
My best friend Abby got married this summer, and she and her new husband Kai went to Greece for their honeymoon. She wanted everything to be just perfect, so like a good Unitarian Universalist, she did her research. She read all the guidebooks and travel blogs and crowdsourced the best activities from friends and family. Where should we go? She asked. What is a must-do in Greece? Again and again she heard, go and watch the sunset over the sea in Santorini. Every guidebook, travel blog, and all her friends who had been to Greece said that it was a once-in-a-lifetime experience, the best, most picturesque, perfect part of their trip to Greece, not to be missed. So Abby put it at the very top of her to-do list. When they got to Greece, Abby was overwhelmed by its beauty. There were evenings by the sea, eating dinner of fresh caught fish, listening to live local music with cats curled on balconies and everyone laughing that felt like they came out of some magical storybook. It was so gorgeous she could barely stand it. So with that level of expectation as her baseline, Abby and Kai took the boat to the island of Santorini, expecting a lifetime peak experience on top of what was already breathtaking beauty. Loaded up with expectation, they headed out towards paradise. And Abby hated it. She hated everything about it. She hated their first steps off the boat into what felt like a street full of consuming tourism, with tchotchke shops lining the avenue selling memorabilia and very expensive reproductions of sunsets. She hated the overpriced, slightly less good, even seemingly less Greek food, the too polished musicians playing pop tunes, the expensive hotel room that looked like every other hotel room she's ever stayed in, except with Greek accents. Still, she readied herself for the sunset. Maybe the reason for all of this overpriced tourist trap nonsense was that sunset over the sea. Maybe she just had to find the right restaurant, the right night, the right combination of all the right things to get that peak experience she'd been expecting. So she pored over the literature again, searching for the perfect piece of fresh fish, the perfect combination of sea and dipping sun and tinkling music that would give her that little slice of heaven that everyone else had been served up in Santorini. She made her carefully researched choices, and she and Kai set out to experience perfection. And she hated it. The whole scene felt contrived, and the music was bland, and the fish was dry. And the sunset, well, the sunset was a sunset. It was fine. It was not life-changing. It was not mystical. It was not a once-in-a-lifetime experience of heaven on earth. It was a perfectly fine sunset. Everything else, though, was obviously terrible. Part of the reason Abby was so deeply disappointed with her experience of Santorini was her expectation going in that it was going to be perfect. The sunset in Santorini is truly supposed to be one of the best in the world. There are travel websites based entirely on comparing the best places in Santorini to watch the sunset, and hotels that make their livelihood off of advertising sunset views. In his 2004 book, The Paradox of Choice, Why Less is More, the psychologist Barry Schwartz argued that trying to choose the perfect thing leads to lower self-esteem, more regret, and lower satisfaction with the choice a person eventually makes. It seems that the higher our expectations are as human beings, the more likely we are to be dissatisfied. A 2014 study published in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences found that the levels of people's happiness with the results of playing an experimental game were more dependent on their expectations of that game than whether they won or lost. The study included more than 18,000 participants who played the game while hooked up to an MRI machine that scanned their brains for their reactions. The correlation between what those people expected to happen and their level of happiness with the results was so strong that the research team was able to develop a mathematical equation that could accurately predict how happy a person would be with varying results. Dr. Rob Rutledge, who's the senior research associate at University College London and the leader of the study, said, "Happiness depends not on how well things are going, but whether things are going better or worse than expected." Abby's expectations of the sunset over Santorini were off the charts. Her expectations of the rest of the trip, however, the local restaurant that they happened upon while walking down the street, were more average, and she was blown away by that rest of the trip, charmed by novelty and surprise. Lower expectations, however, have their own consequences. There's a classic 1963 psychological study by Rosenthal and Fody that measured the effects of expectation. In that first study, the researchers gave undergraduate experimenters lab rats and told them to train the lab rats to run through a maze. The researchers gave one set of undergraduates a group of rats and told them that that group of rats was especially bright. And then they gave the other group of undergraduates an especially dull set of rats. They told both sets of undergraduates that they would have a week to train their rats to run through the maze, and at the end of the week, the group of especially bright rats ran through the maze significantly more quickly than the entire set of especially dull rats. The bright rats had improved with every day of the week of training, while the dull rats showed little to no improvement over the course of the week. Of course, all of the rats were just standard lab rats. None of them was particularly bright or dull. The scientists had simply assigned them those terms at random. It was the undergraduates' expectations of the rats that made the difference in the rats' maze-running capacity. This kind of effect, where expectations have concrete effects on behavior, has since been labeled the Rosenthal effect. Later that same year, Rosenthal developed another experiment to test how teachers' expectations of students might affect student outcomes. In that experiment, the scientists assigned a completely random list of students a label of ready to bloom and told their teachers at the beginning of the year that those students were likely to enter a year of high academic achievement. They gave all the children in the class an IQ test at the beginning and at the end of the year. And when they tested the students again at the end of the year, the random, ready-to-bloom student list had significantly more improved IQs at the end of the school year than the students that were not on that list. The teachers' expectations had effect on the students' improvement. So, while lower expectations will lead to more happiness and probably compassion, higher expectations will likely lead to more improvement. We're left in a competition between different values. Episcopal priest and faculty member at the Living School, Reverend Cynthia Burgo, recommends the third way, which she describes as, quote, the interplay of two polarities calling forth a third, which is the mediating or reconciling principle between them. In contrast to a binary system which finds stability in the balance of opposites, a ternary system stipulates that there's a third force that emerges as a necessary mediation of these opposites, and that in turn generates a synthesis at a whole new level. It's a dialectic whose resolution simultaneously creates a new realm of possibility. According to Bourgeot, the third way is not quite the triad of thesis, antithesis, synthesis, because the third force is always an equal player and not just a combination of the first two oppositional energies. That third player is creative. It makes something new. When I look at the dialectic conversation between high and low expectations, I see the third way as being open to hope. Rather than abandoning all planning, heaven forbid, or having very low expectations, one might do some research and work and planning and then also leave open space for flow and change and surprise. In the book Messy, The Power of Disorder to Transform Our Lives, Tim Harford tells the story of David Bowie's musical recreation. In 1976, David Bowie was struggling with an identity crisis, addiction, and writer's block. He moved to Berlin with Iggy Pop and invited a number of different musicians and producers to come out and work with him to make a new sound. One of the people that he invited was a keyboard player named Brian Eno. And Eno brought with him a deck of cards that he called oblique strategies. Anytime that the team got stuck, Eno would draw a card from the deck at random and then tell the team to follow its extremely weird instructions. One of the instructions was, be the first not to do what has never been done before. Other cards included instructions like twist the spine, emphasize the flaws, and change instrument roles. This last instruction resulted in one track on which the world-renowned guitarist Carlos Alomar was told to play the drums. Predictably, the musicians hated it. The violinist from Simon House said that their recording sessions often sounded absolutely terrible. And yet, they created some of the most critically acclaimed albums of the 1970s. Bowie's Low and Heroes, and Iggy Pop's The Idiot and Lust for Life. It was the combination of mastery and novelty, long work and sudden, even weird surprise that made the new sound. Rather than these things being in dialectical opposition, the forces were able to create something new together, something beautiful. The complexity of expectation is that it will affect our experience and the experience of the people around us. To blend the improvements of high expectations with the happiness of low expectations, we might shift to open expectations, a more complex sense of expectancy. Something like, I don't know what's going to happen here, but I'm open to wonder and awe and beauty. And I hope to be moved and transformed for the better. The third way comes from more than just a synthesis of two opposing forces. It comes from a third element as well. In addition to the power of planning and the openness of hope, we might choose to add deliberate gratitude. This morning, while I was preparing for this service, I watched the sun rise over our lake. It was an everyday affair, not once in a lifetime, but a shadow mist of pink that passed from the south corner of my window, wandering through pale periwinkle clouds to blush into the north. It was speckled with wisps of white, and then it slowly faded into rolling lavender. And in my state of planning, I witnessed the surprise and the wonder of unfolding life, and I was extremely grateful to be alive this morning. We don't know what will happen, and it is wise to plan and work towards the things that we desire, and yet too concrete expectations will only leave us frustrated and disappointed. When we combine planning and research with an openness to the creativity of life around us, an openness to the surprises, the unexpected beauty and newness that we never could have planned ourselves, then we get to experience that fresh dinner by the sea, and David Bowie's Low, and the surprise beauty that is life breathing on us. When those surprises come, we might mix in our third practice of gratitude for all that is our life. May it be so.
Every week, we have the opportunity to practice our values through sharing our resources. Our pledges are at the heart of our spiritual practice of generosity. In addition, the church shares half of all the non-pledged cash in our offering plate with a community organization. In this way, we commit our resources in line with our belief that this congregation is interdependent with the world beyond these walls. Today, we share the plate with the Benedict Center. May the practice of giving bring us joy. The offering will now be gratefully received.
Will you please rise in body or spirit and join us in the responsive reading that's printed in your orders of service? The responsive reading is adapted from Alice Walker's Expect Nothing. I'll begin. Expect nothing. Live frugally on surprise. Wish for nothing larger than your own small heart, or greater than a star. Tame wildest flame. With caress unmoved and cold. Make it an archive for your soul. Discover the reason why. So tame human exists at all. So scared, unwise, but expect nothing. And will you join us in singing our closing hymn, number 128, For All That Is Our Life?